You know, every year, Tennessee ranks among the worst states for fire deaths.
That's why you often hear you need a smoke detector to protect your family. But a new Channel 5 investigation discovered not all detectors are equal. In fact, the most common type has an alarming rate of failure. Our consumer investigator, Jennifer Kraus, found one family who wishes they'd know the difference.
This is the way Amanda Deputy wants to remember her kids. The way they lived.
Oh, how sweet.
Not the way they died.
You're not supposed to bury your children. Your children are supposed to bury you. And I buried 4.
911. I have a fire in my home.
Deputy remembers waking up that night last February and being surrounded by thick black smoke.
It just literally burnt your lungs as you suck it in.
Do you know what's on fire? In the hallway upstairs. I woke up to fuse boxes and it's sparking.
Deputy says she tried to get upstairs where 4 of her 5 kids had been sleeping, but she couldn't get through the flames.
Absolute panic. Absolute. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have one child.
Deputy, her husband, and their 3-year-old son managed to make it out. Her 4 other children did not. Mandy, JT, Sinjin, and Shelby all died in the fire. But autopsies later showed it wasn't the actual flames that killed them. Instead, all 4 died from smoke inhalation, long before the flames began to spread.
At what point did you hear your smoke detector?
Never. They never went off.
And Deputy now believes she knows why her family never heard any sort of warning, even though there were 3 smoke alarms in the house.
We just had your average generic smoke detector that you can buy at any basic store.
In fact, they're the same kind of smoke detector that most people have in their homes. They're called ionization smoke detectors, and what they do best is sound off when there are actual flames. The problem is, studies have found ionization detectors can have trouble detecting, believe it or not, smoke.
These cases keep me up at night.
Jay Fleming is a deputy fire chief with the Boston Fire Department, and he's become an outspoken critic of ionization detectors because he says they often fail to work in smoky, smoldering fires.
And the smoldering fires, they always occur while people are asleep.
And that, he says, is when you need your smoke alarm the most.
When the detector finally does go off, the ion detector, they wake up, they're trapped by the smoke, and eventually they die from carbon monoxide.
My family was gone.
No alarm,
No.
letting you and your family know that you had to get out.
In fact, our investigation found consumers have filed literally hundreds of complaints about ionization detectors, how in smoke-filled rooms, their detectors failed to go off. Recently, a family who lost 2 relatives at a house fire in upstate New York won a $7 million verdict against a smoke detector manufacturer. And in Crossville, 2 children died in a house fire in the middle of the night after their detector didn't sound an alert. In that case, the manufacturer settled a lawsuit with the family instead of going to trial.
I am convinced that that scenario is repeated over and over again in this country.
And this is JT.
In fact, Chief Fleming believes thousands of people have died, like the deputy children, in fires where their ionization detectors have failed to go off.
It's a tragedy and it's a disgrace.
But what's even more tragic, he says, is that a different kind of smoke alarm, called a photoelectric detector, actually might have saved many of these lives.
The photoelectric isn't going to save everybody, but I think the potential savings is huge.
Tests show photoelectric detectors usually go off in smoke-filled rooms much sooner than ionization detectors. Yet photoelectric detectors generally only cost a few bucks more.
Even at this extra cost, I think if most people knew the difference, they would gladly pay the price.
I would have spent the money.
And Amanda Deputy says because she didn't know there was a difference in smoke detectors,
Merry Christmas, everybody.
she's now lost something you can't put a price on.
I will never get another hug. I will never get another paper from school. There will never be another Christmas where I have 5 faces truly excited to see what's under the tree.
That's it.
And tomorrow night, we will show you just how much of a difference there is between the 2 smoke detectors as we put them to the test. And it really is amazing, Kristen.
Your heart breaks for that family, Jennifer. You know, and smoke detectors look so similar. How can you tell which one you have in your house?
Well, odds are you have an ionization, but to be sure, just take a look at the the detector. Ionization detectors have a small eye on the front or back. They may also have a radioactive symbol or a reference to radioactive material on it. And if you get false alarms when you cook, you probably have an ionization detector. Photoelectric detectors usually have a small P on them. And then if you see the words dual sensor, that means your detector contains both ionization and photoelectric technologies. But as you'll see in our test tomorrow night, there is a big difference in how well these detectors work.
Such an important investigation. All right, Jennifer, thank you. It's an investigation you will definitely want to see tomorrow night at 10. Will your smoke detector wake you if there's a fire? Well, if you have the kind of smoke detector found in most homes, it may not go off. In fact, our investigation discovered the most common type has an alarming rate of failure, as you'll see when our consumer investigator Jennifer Kraus puts them to the test.
You know, being killed with smoke, it's a horrible way to go.
If your house catches on fire in the middle of the night, you want a smoke detector that wakes you up at the first sign of smoke.
Smoke's what kills people. Rarely somebody actually gets burned up.
But get this, the kind of smoke detector found in most homes often has trouble detecting the type of smoke that kills.
And if the public was aware of it, it could save hundreds of lives every year.
Boston's Deputy Fire Chief Jay Fleming has spent years studying smoke detectors. Gonna write a P for photoelectric. And with his help, we put them to the test. We've got 3 kinds of smoke detectors up here. One is an ionization detector. It's the cheapest kind and the type most people have in their homes. The second, a photoelectric detector, costs a few bucks more. And the third is dual, a combination ionization and photoelectric detector.
Breathe in.
For our test, along with Fleming, we invited firefighters from the state and Metro, including State Representative Mike Turner, to the Tennessee Fire Academy in Bedford County.
So it's going to be interesting.
But even these firefighters were skeptical that there would be much of a difference between when the detectors would sound.
I'm going to say 20, 25 seconds between each one.
I think maybe a minute tops.
So with 6 cameras ready to capture every angle,
What we're trying to do is simulate a cigarette in a couch.
Chief Fleming sticks a hot soldering iron under the cushion.
This is actually a very common type fire in the United States.
It's a slow-burning fire that creates a lot of smoke, just like fires caused by space heaters and electrical fires.
Now we just have to wait.
About 5 minutes later, we see the first curl of smoke, and we start our timer.
As you can see, the amount of smoke given off is gradually and very slowly increasing in amount.
At this point, the Home Sweet Home sign on the wall is clearly visible, and breathing without a mask is easy.
Yeah, we're now 5.5 minutes into the test.
But as the minutes pass, it gets tougher to breathe, as the room starts to get visibly smoky. Then, 8 minutes and 15 seconds after we first spot smoke,
That's the photoelectric detector, right?
the photoelectric alarm sounds. In a real fire, firefighters say you'd have no trouble getting out alive. But the other 2 detectors are silent, despite all the smoke that now fills the small room. And it's another 2 minutes before there's another alarm. This time, it's the combination detector.
10 minutes and 15 seconds, the dual went off.
But still, the ionization detector, again, the kind found in most homes, hasn't sounded its alarm.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't gone off yet.
There's now so much smoke, the Home Sweet Home sign is hard to see. Even Chief Fleming, a veteran firefighter, needs his breathing mask.
I think people are surprised at how much smoke you can get without having any flame.
Everyone has their breathing apparatus on, and the ionization smoke detector has still not gone off.
I'm not saying there isn't a single person in this country who can't escape through this kind of smoke, but there's a lot of people who can't.
But still, there's no alarm from the ionization detector.
And every second, it's getting worse and worse.
Until finally, 15 minutes and 40 seconds into the test. That's more than 7 minutes after the photoelectric alarm. Minutes, the firefighters agree, could be the difference between life and death.
That was a real eye-opener.
And these once skeptical fire experts
It's just amazing, the difference in the two.
admit they were stunned.
I thought once that first one went off, the other 2 would follow suit, and I was really shocked.
We're going to light a flaming fire.
The makers of ionization smoke detectors say this type of detector works best with faster burning flaming fires. But when we put our same 3 detectors to the test,
All the detectors went off within seconds of each other.
it wasn't long before alarms were sounding, and not just one, all 3.
This is a lot of clean burning smoke, as you can tell.
But remember, you're most likely to die in a smoky fire. Again, the kind where ionization detectors may fail to go off until it's too late.
I think since 1990, the failure to recognize this problem is responsible for literally thousands of needless deaths.
That's a lot of lost lives right there.
And Mike Turner says after seeing our tests,
Okay, we'll leave now and let the sprinklers put the fire out.
he's making the switch to photoelectric.
The technology's out there to save your family, and then that's the bottom line.
Of course, our tests weren't scientific, but federal government scientists have conducted their own tests, and they found a difference of as much as 30 minutes between alarms. That's why some key fire prevention groups are now recommending that people switch either to photoelectric or at least to a dual sensor that's both photoelectric and ionization.
I'm sure a lot of people will want to make that switch, but the question, I guess, is how much more expensive are we talking with the photoelectric?
Not much at all. Generally only about $5 or $6 more for a photoelectric detector. Not a lot of money when you're talking about protecting your family.
Yeah, such important information. Great story, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Well, if you want to know what type of detector you have or read the recommendations, just go to newschannel5.com. And if you know of something we should investigate, email us at investigate@newschannel5.com.